having worked the first 4 rows, you can see that we're starting to get into something interesting. So let's look at row 5 of this chart. It starts with 2 stitches of garter stitch, which are just knit 2, right? Garter stitch is always knit. So I'm on the right side, I've got that marker there. 4 rows of stockinette stitch, and let's begin with 2 knit stitches. Alright, what I recommend that you do here, and it's also shown in the chart by this little arrow, is go ahead and put a marker on your needle to separate those side stitches. Now I need, since these are big needles and I don't have any big safety pin markers, I just made one out of yarn. Just like that. Make a knot and trim the ends. And just put it over your needle like that. That will help you remember to do these in knit because you're going to be concentrating on other things. So I always like to make you have to think less. Alright, so next, looking at the chart, it says these 2 horizontal lines, that means purl, purl, and then knit, knit. Alright, so let's just do those. This row here is actually setting us up to do cables on the next right side row. Alright, so the chart says purl, purl, knit, knit. There's the 2 purls, you can see the 2 bumps just like the chart, and you can also see that the knit stitch just looks like its abbreviation on the chart, which is a vertical line, because the knit stitch goes straight up and down. Alright. So the next one here we have in purple, this purple box, and the fact that it's boxed in these 8 stitches means that all across this purple row, that 8 stitch, those 8 stitches are going to repeat. So we have here, reading from right to left, purl, 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 knit, 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 knit. And then we do it again. Purl, 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 knit, 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 and then one more time. Alright, so let's do that. And I'm going to switch to American style just to be fair to everybody. You know, the stitches are made exactly the same, but it's still a little bit confusing if you're not used to watching continental style. It's like, what is she doing? Alright. So 4 knits. Notice how I'm moving my stitches up to the tips of the needles every time? Makes it a lot easier. Alright, put your yarn in front for purling. Makes it so much easier. I mean, that front part is tapered there for a reason, right? So many times I see knitters knitting down here. Down here like this. Oh, makes it harder. So go ahead and use your thumbs to push your stitches up. So this is pretty easy. See, I wasn't really paying attention, but there's my 4 purls. Purl, 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 so I know where I am. And if you ever get stuck like that, you can always just go back and look at your knitting. And I actually have a video on recognizing a knit stitch and a purl stitch, although we just basically covered it. You know, the purl stitch has a horizontal bump, the knit stitch doesn't. So you can always go back. Let's say you have to answer the door or whatever, answer the phone, and you're like, oh, where am I? You can always go back to the beginning and just count, looking at your chart and go, okay, those are my 2 side stitches, and then it looks like I purled 2, knitted 2, purled 4, knitted 4, purled 4, and knitted 4. So, and how many groups were we doing? Let's see, 1, 2, looks like I need to do 1 more group. I'm going to switch back to continental style. So, and you're going to find yourself doing this a lot. Looking at your stitches and seeing what you did. And that is actually a way to make this go faster because you don't have to look at your chart and try and figure out what you did. You can just look at your knitting and figure out what you did. So just keep repeating this sequence. You can also do this, you can look at your chart and say, okay, I'm going to repeat this sequence until I have, looks like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, till I have 12 stitches left. That way you don't really have to pay attention. I love knitting where you don't have to pay attention. I think it decreases the possibility that you're going to mess up. So here we go. We got purl 4, knit 2, purl 4. We're going to place another marker and then knit the last 2. Knit 2, purl 4. Place your other marker, that's the last marker that you're going to need. And work those last 2 stitches in garter stitch. What's the last step? Aha! Remember to highlight that row. When it's time to work row number 6, you're going to have your wits about you. You need to pay attention, right? Because this part is not in the chart. So looking at your knitting, we know that these on this side of the marker are always garter stitch, so they're always knitted. So we're going to knit those 2. And just slip the marker over like that. Okay, now looking at these stitches right here are knit stitches. One way to tell is you can contrast them with the stitches next to them, which are purl stitches. You can see that horizontal bump right there, and no horizontal bump right here. I like to think of it sort of like a V-neck on a sweater. It just goes straight down in, as opposed to like a turtleneck, like that. So you can see that these 4 stitches are knit stitches. Now we're not looking at this one right here. We're looking at this, the one on the needle. This looking down here can confuse you because that looks like a purl, right? So just looking at the one on the needle, it goes down and has like an unobstructed entrance into the next stitch. So we're going to knit those stitches until we come to something that looks different. And if you have trouble, you can always just sort of squish the knitting out of the way like I'm doing. Okay, now this looks different. Looks like it goes straight down into a turtleneck sweater, so we're going to purl those. 1, 2, and here we have knit stitches again. So just continue across all this way, and I'll show you what to do. Like if you accidentally knit a purl stitch, which will probably happen. I hope it does, because it'll be a good learning opportunity. If you accidentally do that, I will show you how to recognize it and fix it without taking out all your knitting back down to your mistake. So don't worry. You know, if you see something on the front later that's like, oh, that looks awful, we'll just go down and fix it. I mean, notice it as soon as you can. Here's a knit, but we'll go down and fix it, so you don't have to worry too much. I got your back. Alright, continuing to knit, and just work in this way, remembering to knit the last 2 stitches in garter stitch.